All right. First day of class. I hope everyone's having a good day. If you could take a moment and mute yourself, um, I'd appreciate that. If you have a question, by any means, or by all means, unmute yourself and ask a question, but just the, background noise of, if you have your TV on or something like that. So this is the meeting for Chem 1310. Now, we're largely going to be focusing on kind of the structure of this class and the grading guidelines for this class. But we'll get into a little bit material today. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to share with y'all our Canvas page. Our Canvas page, which everyone should have gained access to so far. Our Canvas page here is not being shared because I changed. There we go. So here's our Canvas page. And I'm trying to go kind of minimalist and simplify and keep a simple page. So I've just got it set up as a table. On the far left-hand side corner, or on the far left, you'll see a column for the weeks, then the day, the date, and the agenda. In the agenda column, that's where you'll find all the important information that you need with respect to things that you need for class or recordings of our class. Because this class is administered on Zoom, that gives us the opportunity to record it. So I will be recording all of our lectures and I will post them on my YouTube page. And so that's something that, you'll have access to whether you make it to class or not. And I'm not going to be like a gatekeeper of that. Now, with that said, we'll be meeting for a total of 16 weeks. Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 till 10:50 a.m. Our final exam will be on Wednesday, December 11th from 8 a.m. until 10:30 a.m. Now, in the event that you ever find yourself trying to find out either when your final exam is for a certain class and it's not on the syllabus or it's not on the web page for another class is what I'm alluding to. I'm going to share a link with you that is on the registrar's homepage. Here you go. And this registrar's homepage link, if you click on that, it has our fall 2024 final exam schedule. And actually, I'm gonna switch my share now. It's good. This will be updated probably within the next, I don't know, before the end of this term, within the next couple of weeks, and you'll see the spring 2025 and the summer 2025 calendar. But here's fall 2024, which I think is great that we have a snowflake because all of the times that it snows in Central Texas, fall 2024, if you go to this webpage, which is the link that I sent you a moment ago, and it is now loading. There it is. This has details about when your class meets, class meeting day, the class meeting time. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I messed it up. Broke it. I hope it didn't break it for everyone. Your class meeting times, and then when the exam is actually scheduled, when your final exam is scheduled. So this class is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. Here's a handful of Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes. And this class meets from 10 till 10:50 a.m. So that's where we are. And this exam will be Wednesday, December 11th from 8 a.m. until 10:30 a.m. So that's just a good cue for when our class is going to have our exam. And this is something that I always like to do this because my first semester teaching at Texas State, I made a mistake and I looked at this page wrong. I think I looked at the Monday, Wednesday And I was like, oh my gosh, I made a huge mistake because I didn't read this table properly. But our class is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to 10:50, Wednesday, December 11th, 8 till 10:30 in the morning. Now that's a ways away, but nevertheless, it's important to go ahead and review this. So the final and
This
everything.
meeting is being
Oh
recorded.
my gosh.
I know. It's okay. It's okay. Um, so the final and everything else is going to be online. So we'll never be in person. If that's not what you signed up for, then I think that there is one section that is in person, and but that might be full. But this class is going to be purely online. So everything that we do, every meeting that we have, will be either through Zoom or through some other method online. Okay, now I'd like to go back to our schedule for the semester. So the first thing that's on here is our exam, our first exam on Monday, the 23rd of September. Our next exam is Monday, October 14th, then Monday, November 4th, and then Wednesday, December 4th. Okay, so I tried to do about 3.5 weeks, or roughly 3 weeks between exams. I wasn't able to get that with the exam 3 and 4. It's a little bit longer, but that's also because of I didn't want to have an exam on this date, Monday, November 25th, because I know that typically that being the week of Thanksgiving, lots of people like to travel or are traveling. And so I think that it would be kind of rough to say like, oh yeah, take an exam. In addition to that, I always, and I mean, I've gotten good feedback on this, but I always try to have exams on Mondays as opposed to like Fridays or Fridays or Wednesdays. And the reason being is that, that gives you an opportunity to study over the course of the weekend, email me questions, and kind of work through it like that. Now, with that in mind, if we take this Friday, September 20th as an example, that is a day where we will have basically 50% of the class. Yeah, 50%, 50%. This will be new stuff. And then exam review. And that's just to say that we're going to have new content covered up until the day before the exams. But I always like to stop class or stop a little bit early so that I can talk about the exam that you're going to be taking during the next class period. Give you some information and ideas about, what's going to be on there, what types of questions and everything like that. Okay, so hope that makes sense and is clear. And we'll go through this as the semester progresses. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll always post the content or the slides as a PowerPoint, a PPTX file, as well as a PDF. The PPTX is going to have some animations. The PDF will obviously not. The syllabus for this class is available on our Canvas page. It's got the wrong. Okay, there we go. So my email is jg1345@txstate.edu. We don't have a textbook for this class, or we don't have a textbook that you have to purchase. We have what's called an Open Educational Resource, an OER, and that's called Chemistry for Changing Times. We're basically going to be working through the first 6 chapters of this book. We're not going to go through them in a specific sequence or the same sequence as what's laid out in the book. But we're going to work through it, and yeah. This will be, I'll reference materials that you need to kind of review and look at. This page right here is how you can go So basically this chemistry, atoms, atomic structure, chemical bonds, chemical accounting, gases, liquids, and solids, and acids and bases. So 6 of the first 7 are what we're going to focus on. There, we're not going to be dealing with the last portions of this. But anyway, that's what we're going to be doing. Then, let's see what else. Grading for this class. We'll have quizzes, quite a few of them. Did I add this up? I didn't add this up, right? 5 plus, that's 80. Okay, no, I'm good. That's not right. Okay, so our exam, sorry, I need to correct this final exam date because we're not having an exam on August 2nd. I think I uploaded the wrong file. So this is incorrect. Let me annotate this so that I clear this up. That's incorrect, but we'll have quizzes roughly 1 to 2 per week. And the way that I like to do quizzes is I post them on Canvas and allocate 15 minutes and say you have 48 hours to do them. So what that means is that the quiz opens, let's say at 11 a.m. Monday, and it closes 11 a.m. Wednesday. And somewhere within this time frame, you have to find 15 minutes to take this quiz. So you'll have to take it and you'll have 2 attempts. And your lowest will be dropped. So essentially what that means is that in terms of feedback that you'll get between the attempts, Canvas will automatically post your score. But I do not believe that it shows you which questions you got right. It will give you the answers that you input. But, you know, if you look at it, you know, they're going to be brief. They're like 5 to 8 questions long. And let's say that you go through and you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You will look in the grade book and you'll see that you got, let's say, 6 out of 10 points. So you got 60% of the questions right. What that means is that you'll see that, or you'll know this score, and then you'll see that you marked A, B, C, A, B, D, A. You'll know that that is what you marked, but you won't know if this is right or wrong. What you'll have to do is you'll have to basically, you can revisit that. You can look at that and say, okay, well, am I right or am I wrong about this one? So the point is, in your second attempt at the quiz, you're not going to be told, oh, number 1, 2, and 3 are all incorrect. Instead, you're going to have to deduce and think about that and say, okay, well, is this right? Yes, number 1 is right. So I'm going to stick with A. But number 2, I think that's one that I got wrong. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to dismiss this as an answer option. So I'm going to call that, I'm going to go back my next time and use A as my answer. And so on your second attempt, maybe what you'll get is 8 out of 10. In which case, when you made some changes, you got it right, but then maybe some of your other changes were incorrect. So you get 2 attempts at every single quiz, 15 minutes in which to do them. And you just have to make sure that you get it all done within 48 hours. When you take your quizzes, you are more than welcome to use a scratch piece of paper and write down your notes. I mean, you could conceivably do like screenshots for reference. But I want you to be like, I would recommend just using a piece of paper and writing my notes and being like, question number 1, this is what I came up with as my answer. And then after you've gotten your score feedback, you can say, okay, well, this one I feel good about, these two I need to revisit. And that's the one that I think I got wrong. What I would like for everyone to do is to, on their first attempt, get 6 out of 10. And then on their second attempt, get 10 out of 10. That's what I would want you to do, or that's what I want you to do. But I understand that, there are going to be some questions that you kind of struggle with, and you're like, is it this or is it this? And I think it's this. So these are administered on Canvas. And that's the big part of it. Your quizzes, though, are going to be quite frequent. Sorry, your 20% of your grade. And this was actually, sorry, I need to do one thing here. Of all of the quizzes that we take during the long semester, your lowest 2 quiz grades will be dropped. So if, we've got 15 weeks basically, and we'll take 1 to 2 per week. Let's say that we take 25 quizzes. That means your highest of the 23, or your 23 highest, will be kind of your the ones that you ultimately are graded on. Now, with that said, when you look at this breakdown for our class, we've got quizzes, exams, final exam, and participation. One thing that's not on there, does anyone have any thoughts of what they would see in most of their classes that's not on there? So
Would it be extra credit?
extra credit, no. Midterm, no. Attendance, no. Sorry, homework. Homework is the correct answer. We don't have any homework. And the reason for that is we have so many quizzes. The quizzes are kind of intended to be like homework. If you work on I want you to look at the quizzes as different from your exams. Your quizzes are not exams. Your quizzes are, you can work on them with other people. I have no qualms with that. So that's kind of used in place of the homework. So that's why I say I want everyone to end up with 10 out of 10 on their second attempts for those quizzes. Because I want you to prepare for it, see the questions, answer those questions, get the score feedback, and then go back and look at the notes, look at the textbook, and figure out, okay, where did I make the mistake? So that's kind of the work that we'll be doing throughout the semester. So no homework, but the quizzes are not yes, the quizzes are open note. So use your PowerPoints. You can rewatch the lectures. I don't think you can rewatch a lecture in 15 minutes, but those quizzes are, I just use quizzes because there is a timed function to them. And I set it at 15 minutes just so then it's like, okay, focus and get this done in 15 minutes. Now, with that said, in the event that you have accommodations to receive additional time, please contact me and I will, for the quizzes and the exams, I will absolutely give you that extra time. So, or that appropriate timing. So that's one of the biggest differences from this class and other classes. The quizzes are, they're open note. They're kind of the same thing as homework in some senses, but there's just a limited window in which to do them. Okay, let's see. The next thing that I wanted to talk about with respect to our class is participation. We'll have Zoom polls, and we'll do we might do Top Hat depending on the success of the Zoom polls. I will let you know whenever the time comes. And actually, we're probably going to do a mixture of Zoom polls and Top Hat. If you've done Top Hat before, then one thing that you've probably known is that top hat, you get a score. Uh-oh, someone's writing on here. I don't want to share those. Stop this thing. Collaborate with others. No, stop. With top hat, questions are basically like, did you get it right or not? And you're given like 1 point for getting it right, 1 point for participating. The way that I like to do it is I like to do 2 points for participating, 1 point for correct or correctness. Okay, then I need to go to classic white. Extra. Okay, I'm gonna close before someone starts writing swear words on the whiteboard, because I know that that's what a younger Joel and Ray would do. I'm just gonna do it this way. All right. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the grades for your exams. First thing is that your final exam or all of your exams are worth a total of 15% each. You have to take all of them. So where it gets a little bit complicated is in kind of the opportunities. I'll refer to it as like the redemption opportunities. So we'll have exam 1, exam 2, exam 3, exam 4, and the final. So these are 15% each. There's 5 of them, so they add up to 75%. So 75% of your grade is based on your performance on your exams. The remaining 25% is from participation and quizzes. Now, what I want to do is make a little matrix here. And over the course of the semester, we will cover our material in different modules. So those modules, like module 1 will be, I'll call it chapter 1 and chapter 2. Module 2 will be chapter 3 and chapter 4. Module 3 is CH4 or CH5 and 6. And then module 4, we'll call that chapter 7. Okay. So over the course of the semester, we'll have 4 in-class exams corresponding to module 1, 2, 3, and 4. Exam number 1 is going to consist of only module 1 material. Exam number 2 is going to be module 1 and module 2. Exam 3 is going to be module 2 and module 3. Exam number 4 is modules 3 and module 4. The idea here is that everything in this class is going to build on everything that came before it. So we're going to kind of be building up for a final exam, which consists of modules 1, 2, 3, and 4. So none of what we learned is in what's called a vacuum or sometimes referred to as a silo. So it's not like the module 1 material you can just totally forget when you get on to module 2. It's still relevant information. Now, this is important because this is what plays into your grades. So basically, I'm going to say in the grade book that I see, there will be a category that's labeled exam number 1. And in the exam number 1 category, there will be E1, E2, and the final. Now, what those correspond to is the score that you get on this exam, the score that you get on this exam, and the score that you get on the final. And I'll say this as module 1 / exam number 1. So let's say on, what was that date? I think it was September 20th or something like that. September 23rd. If on September 23rd, you come in and you take the exam and you get a 50. That reflects kind of how well you know the module 1 material. Or, I mean, it reflects lots of stuff, but one thing is how well do you know this material? Another thing is like what style of testing and what sorts of questions that I give you. Well, there's going to be an opportunity for you to recover from that 50. And that would be on, I see there's a chat question. I'm going to get to it in just a second. October 14th. So this is 9/23 and 10/14. I'm going to the chat right now. Join. Okay, sounds good. And then this last, or let's see, our final is December. Okay, so on 9/23, you earned a 50, or you got a 50 on it. Then on 10/14, you got a 70. Okay, so your understanding of that module 1 material, it improved. So from your first to your second attempt, it improved because this exam number 2, whoever's, could somebody mute themselves? So we have exam 2, where you were tested over module 1 stuff. The breakdown of this is like 30% of exam 2 is module 1 stuff, and about 70% is module 2 stuff. So I'm going to record that 70. And then let's say on the final exam, or by the time the final exam rolls around, you've just figured out, okay, well, I made some mistakes in how I studied and what types of questions to anticipate. And then by the time the final exam rolls around, you get a 93, we'll say. These 3 grades are going to be under or in the category module 1, exam 1. This is going to account for 15% of your grade. Now, the way that I'm going to look at that is I'm going to say, when you were asked questions about module 1, how did you perform? The first time you got a 50. The second time when you were asked about module 1 stuff, you got a 70. And then the third and final time you got a 93. What I'm going to do is set a rule for this category that drops the lowest 2. I don't average them together. Instead, I'm evaluating this as how well do you know the module 1 stuff? Well, by the time the final rolled around, you had it down. You were great. So the lowest 2 grades are going to be dropped. Now, I'm going to give you an alternative where the outcome's a little bit different. Let's say that the first time you see the module 1 stuff, you get a 100. And then the second time, you get a 75. And then the third time when you take the final, you get an 88. How do we account for this? Well, the 2 lowest are dropped from the kind of calculation for module number 1. The 15% of your grade that relates to module 1, exam 1, well, that's going to be a 100 because one time during questioning about module 1, exam 1, you mastered it. On the final exam, did you do that well? No, you didn't. But is that going to bring your grade down from there? No, it's not. Now, with that said, the final exam still is 15% of your grade. So if I can show you I'm going to show you kind of or does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. So what I'm going to do is clear this and give you kind of a situation where, let's say that, so no, I'm just going to say, if you have questions, basically what this means is every time you take an exam, it's an opportunity to bring up a previous exam grade. So essentially, exam 2 can bring up exam 1. Exam 3 can bring up exam 2. Exam 4 can bring up exam 3, and the final can bring every grade up. So the final is not going to bring down any of your midterm grades. It can bring them all up. Now, I want to caution anyone who's hearing this and is like, perfect. I'm going to show up and take the final, and I'm going to ace the final. And I'm not going to take any of the midterms. I would categorize that as a bad idea because that's going to just kind of come back to haunt you. In part because that sort of gambling or that sort of like risk taking, it rarely, if ever, materializes and shows up how you expect it would. I've had students attempt that, and the student who most recently tried that, who I saw in like the first 2 days of class, and then the very last day of class for the final, they got a 26 on the final because they had like basically ignored a semester's worth of material and was like, I'm going to learn it in a week. And they didn't learn it in a week. So they failed the class. And so that 26 replaced a bunch of zeros on exams, but the 26 is still a failing grade. So if you have any questions about exams and how that grading is done, please don't hesitate to ask. I would, however, just kind of as a blanket statement, say this grading is really intended to kind of help you out and basically, give you an opportunity to, on a regular basis, improve your standing and bring up grades. So I hope that that kind of translates and shows up as you want. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, cool. Now what I need to do is we're going to go ahead and get cracking in 1310. Everything's going to be posted as PowerPoint and a PDF. That's good. Now I'm opening up our PowerPoint. And with that, I'll tell you a little bit about myself because I've got that on there. So there we are. CHEM 1310. I'm Dr. Gray. This is my family. I have 3 little boys. Their names are, just a second, I'm going to circle them as I say them. This is Otis. He just turned 8 on Friday. This is Walter. And this is Arlo. This is me. And this is my wonderful wife, Catherine. And this is us floating the river, or well, pre-floating the river. Yeah, before. Because usually after floating the river, I'm carrying 1 or 2 of the kids because then it's just like, it's been a long day and oh, I'm hot, carry me. So that's what happens. I am originally from the great state of Wisconsin. I was born here in Milwaukee County, which for a while, unfortunately, was the murder capital of the world. And I lived for a time right here in a small town known as Mukwonago, Mukwonago. My parents had a bike shop called Wanna Go Biking. Really clever name. Wanna go biking? Yeah. Well, let's go get bikes at Wanna Go Biking. Thank you very much. I will pass that on. Um, then let's see. My parents, when I was very young, my dad said, I don't want to sell skis anymore because that's what his bike shop sold during the winter months. So we moved to, as a family, not just them, moved to College Station. So I grew up in College Station, Texas, and then moved to San Marcos, Texas, where I was an undergraduate student. Does anyone recognize that building? That's right, Bobcat Village Apartments. I had a roommate there for 2 years, and I think we talked like 5 times. It was a really great situation. Not because of animosity or like anger or anything. We just had absolutely nothing in common. The only thing that we had in common was that we didn't need or want to talk to our roommates. So that was perfect. So we just kind of had this like silent treatment of like, hey, and there wasn't even strife like you stole my milk, because that would require too much like similarity between us. Um, I got my bachelor's degree in biochemistry at Texas State in 2006. Then I went to Texas A&M, where I got my PhD in biochemistry. And what I studied as a graduate student was this right here is a tomato leaf. And what I studied is, if you look closely, well, it's pretty apparent. There are all these lesions or kind of like scars, basically. These are called cell death lesions. And what I studied as a graduate student was how plants respond to pathogens. So basically, like when, a plant obviously can't run away or anything like that, so it has to develop a defense mechanism. And so when there's a bacteria or a bacterial pathogen that infects one of the cells, what happens? And we were just kind of looking to find out what's the process. And plants are super cool because if you've ever seen the movie The Happening, I think is what it's called. It's got Mark Wahlberg. It's where plants like take over and kill people. Um, kind of a, I'm not going to say a ridiculous idea, because I mean, Mark Wahlberg made it and he was able to get people to pay for it. So maybe not a totally ridiculous idea, but plants produce, I think it's something like 25,000 different metabolites or different molecules. And many of them are what are called volatile organic compounds. So they can be produced. They're kind of like airborne hormones or pheromones. Plants produce all these molecules that you don't know it, but you're smelling them, or you're perceiving them in some form or fashion. So plants are super cool. One of the things that they do when bacteria infect cells is, I'm going to do a model of plant cells. And my model of plant cells also kind of looks like a flower, but that's just a coincidence because I'm not good at drawing. No, I'm great at drawing. Don't say that, Joel. So what a plant does is, let's say this circle in the center, that's our cell that's infected by a bacteria. I'm going to put an X there. Um, Plants can produce what's called they develop a response. And if they are resistant to a pathogen, this cell that has the X in it, it's going to send out like a message. It's going to send out a chemical messenger to all of these adjacent cells. And it's basically like an SOS signal of like, hey, I've been attacked by this pathogen. And pathogens, they survive off of living or dead tissue. There are some that survive off of both, but if we take if a bacteria that lives on live tissue shows up to this cell, it's going to feed off of that and go on to another living cell. If it sees a dead cell, it's going to say, can't eat that, I'm good. So anyway, the point is that this cell that was infected sends out a messenger to all the adjacent cells, all the nearby cells, and says, hey, I was just attacked by this bacteria. Initiate or start the cell death cascade. So what that means is that this cell will get the message to effectively die. This cell will get the message to die. This cell will get the message to die. This one will die, this one will die, and this one will die. And that's not because the pathogen like attacked and took over things, but instead, that's the plant's way of basically trapping that pathogen. So that pathogen gets stuck in this center cell because it has to live off of living tissue. It has to feed off of living tissue. If all of these cells surrounding it are dead, they have nothing to do. Okay. No, I was just trying to share something about myself. So that's what I studied as a graduate student, and I think it's pretty neat. So there we go. All right, now to what you need to know. What is very cool about chemistry to me is that sodium and, well, basically different compounds, different elements behave in different ways based on the environment that they're in. So if we look at this right here, this is sodium, Na. Oh, dang it. Spoiler alert there. There we go. So Na, or sodium, that is a substance that if you got pure sodium and you put it in a cup of water, it is going to react very violently. And it's actually going to basically start a small fire, which sounds totally crazy that something immersed in water is going to burn, but that's effectively what it's going to do. Now, before I proceed, has anyone heard of sodium in their everyday life, perhaps at a restaurant or at their kitchen table? Maybe you've heard of, yeah, salt, sodium chloride. So this brings up a very important point. So sodium chloride is something that you sprinkle on a steak or broccoli to make it, have a more robust flavor. But sodium, independent by itself, can, when you add it to water, start on fire. That's insane. Similarly, chlorine. Chlorine gas was used as a chemical weapon during World War I. And it can be anytime that you make chlorine gas, it's extremely hazardous. If you inhale it, it's going to be potentially fatal. When these two things are put together, they make sodium chloride. And they make soup taste good, for example. So this captures to me the coolness about chemistry. How in one form, sodium is extremely violent. In another form, chlorine is extremely violent. But with their powers combined, they basically make nothing, which is just kind of funny and ironic to me. So this is going to be kind of a driving idea of what will be going through this semester. What makes these things, like, why is pure sodium violent? Why does it violently react? Why is chlorine gas potentially deadly? But when they're together, they don't really do anything. Now, that's where I'm going to stop my recording. One thing that I made an announcement, or I said this earlier, I have 2 classes